Jake Harrison sat in his chair at the space station. He watched the screens that showed the empty darkness around Earth. For 15 years, he had done this job. He looked for signals from space. He looked for ships that might come from other worlds. Today felt different that the coffee in his cup had gone cold hours ago. Jake rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the time. It was 3 in the morning. Most people on Earth were sleeping, but Jake never slept when he was on duty. Someone had to watch the sky. A soft beep came from his computer, then another. Jake sat up straight. The beeps got faster. Red lights started flashing on his control panel. Something big was coming toward Earth. This can't be right, Jake said to himself. He checked the numbers again. The objects were huge. They were bigger than any ship humans had ever built. And there were 12 of them. Jake picked up his radio. Control Center, this is Harrison. We have unknown contacts approaching Earth. They're big, really big. The voice on the radio sounded sleepy. Harrison, are you sure? Run the scan again. I've run it 5 times, Jake said. His hands were shaking now. They'll be here in 6 hours. 20 minutes later, the space station was full of people. General Lisa Murphy had come up from Earth. With her team, Dr. Carl Thompson was there too. He was the smartest scientist Jake knew. Everyone looked worried. Show me what you found, General Murphy said. Jake pointed to his screen. They appeared at the edge of our solar system 2 hours ago. They're not trying to hide. In fact, they're sending out signals. What kind of signals? Dr. Thompson asked. That's the strange part, Jake said. The signals are in our own languages. English, Spanish, Chinese, Russian. All of them. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez sat at another computer. She was the best language expert on Earth. Her job was to talk to aliens if they ever came. She had studied every language humans spoke. Now she might need to learn alien languages. I'm getting the signals now, Amy said. Her voice was quiet. They're saying the same thing over and over. We come in peace. We are here to help. Please do not be afraid. General Murphy walked over to Amy's desk. Are you sure that's what they're saying? Yes, ma'am. The message is clear. They want to talk. Dr. Thompson looked at the numbers on Jake's screen. These ships are enormous. Each one is the size of a city. Why would they need ships so big just to talk? Nobody had an answer. 4 hours later, the alien ships stopped just outside Earth's atmosphere. They formed a perfect circle around the planet. Jake could see them now through the station's windows. They looked like giant crystals floating in space. Light bent around them in strange ways. Earth Control, this is the Kethany Protectorate, a voice said over the radio. The voice was beautiful, like music. We request permission to speak with your leaders. Amy jumped up from her chair. That's not possible. I never taught them that word. What word? General Murphy asked. Protectorate. That's a very specific human word. How do they know it? The musical voice spoke again. We have been watching your world for many years. We have learned your languages. We come with an important message. General Murphy picked up the radio. This is General Murphy of Earth Defense. What is your message? We are here to protect you, the voice said. A great darkness is coming to your world. We have traveled far to shield you from this threat. Dr. Thompson stepped forward. What kind of threat? Can you tell us more? There was a long pause. When the voice spoke again, it sounded sad. The darkness consumes everything it touches. It destroys worlds. It eats light itself. We have seen many planets fall to this evil. When will this darkness arrive? General Murphy asked. Soon, very soon. We must begin building shields around your world immediately. Time is running out. Jake looked out the window at the crystal ships. They were beautiful, But something felt wrong. "General," he said quietly, "why won't they tell us exactly what this threat is?" Before General Murphy could answer, the alien voice spoke again. "We are sending a representative to your planet. Please prepare a landing site. We must begin our work quickly." 2 hours later, a small crystal ship landed in the desert outside Las Vegas. The whole world watched on television as the ship's door opened. A tall figure stepped out. The alien was like nothing humans had ever imagined. It was 7 feet tall with pale, see-through skin. It had 4 arms and moved like it was dancing. When it spoke, its voice was like a song. "I am Keeper Voss of the Kethany Protectorate," it said. "We have come to save your world." Captain Ben Foster was part of the team that met the alien. He was a soldier, trained to spot danger. Something about Keeper Voss made him nervous. The alien's words were kind, but its eyes looked afraid. "Keeper Voss," Captain Foster said, "can you tell us more about this darkness you mentioned?" The alien's 4 arms moved in a flowing pattern. "The darkness is ancient. It has no name that your people could pronounce. It seeks to devour all life, all hope, all light. But what exactly is it?" Dr. Thompson asked. "Is it a weapon? A disease? Another alien race?" Keeper Voss was quiet for a long moment. "You must trust us. We know how to fight this evil. Your people do not. Let us protect you." That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the alien's words. The Kethanese said they wanted to protect Earth, but they wouldn't say what they were protecting Earth from. In Jake's experience, people who wouldn't answer simple questions usually had something to hide. He looked out his window at the crystal ships. They had started building something. Huge metal structures were growing in space around Earth. The Kethany worked fast. Too fast, Jake thought. On Earth, people were scared. Some believed the aliens were heroes. Others thought they might be invaders pretending to be heroes. Mayor Helen Brooks of New York spent all day on the phone trying to keep people calm. "The aliens say they're here to help," she told the crowds outside City Hall. "We have to trust them." But in her heart, Mayor Brooks had the same question that Jake had. If these aliens really wanted to help, why wouldn't they explain what they were helping with? As Jake watched the alien ships work through the night, he made a decision. He was going to find out what the Kethany were really doing. And he was going to find out what this mysterious darkness really was. The aliens had come to Earth with promises of protection. But Jake Harrison knew that sometimes the most dangerous enemies were the ones who claimed to be your friends. 3 weeks had passed since the Kethany arrived. Their crystal ships hung in space like giant diamonds. Every day, more metal structures grew around Earth. The aliens called them shield generators. They said the shields would protect humanity from the coming darkness. But many humans were starting to ask uncomfortable questions. Senator Paul Davis sat in a big room in Washington. Around him sat other government leaders from all over the world. At the front of the room stood Keeper Voss, the alien representative. "Keeper Voss," Senator Davis said, "we appreciate your help, but we need more information. What exactly is this darkness you keep talking about?" The alien's 4 arms moved in slow circles. When Keeper Voss spoke, his voice still sounded like music, but there was something else in it now. Fear. "The darkness is difficult to explain in your language," Keeper Voss said. "It is not like anything in your experience." "Try us," Senator Davis said. "We're smarter than you think." Keeper Voss looked around the room. His pale skin seemed to become even more transparent. "It is a force that consumes. It turns light into shadow. It makes life into death. It cannot be reasoned with or stopped." Senator Davis leaned forward. "Is it an army? A weapon? A disease?" "It ice emptiness, hunger, the opposite of existence itself." The room was quiet. Finally, A woman at the back spoke up. It was Dr. Susan Wright, a scientist who studied alien life. She had been watching Keeper Voss carefully for weeks. "Keeper Voss," Dr. Wright said, "every time we ask about this darkness, your body language changes. Your voice becomes different. You're afraid of something. What aren't you telling us?" The alien stopped moving his arms. For a moment, he stood perfectly still. Fear is ... appropriate. Any thinking being would fear the darkness. Dr. Wright made notes on her tablet. She had been studying the Kethany for weeks. She noticed that they acted strange whenever humans asked direct questions. Their musical voices became harsh. Their smooth movements became jerky. After the meeting, Dr. Wright walked to her laboratory. She had been working with a team of scientists to understand the aliens better. What she had found worried her. "The Kethany are hiding something big," she told her assistant, Dr. Peter Clark. "Every time we ask about this darkness, they show signs of extreme stress, but there's something else." "What do you mean?" Dr. Clark asked. "They're not just afraid of the darkness. They're afraid of us." Dr. Clark looked surprised. "Afraid of humans? That doesn't make sense. They have the advanced technology. They have the big ships." "I know it sounds crazy," Dr. Wright said. "But look at this data." She showed him readings from her instruments. These measure stress levels in alien biology. Every time a human asks a direct question, Keeper Voss's stress levels go through the roof. Meanwhile, across the city, Marine Colonel Tony Green was having his own concerns. He had been assigned to watch the Kethany construction sites in space. What he saw there made him very uncomfortable. "The shield generators aren't just defensive," he told his team. "Look at these pictures." On the screen, he showed images of the alien structures. They surrounded Earth completely. But Colonel Green had noticed something the aliens hadn't mentioned. "See these energy projectors?" He pointed to parts of the structures. They face both outward and inward. "If these are shields to protect us, why do they need to point weapons at Earth?" Sergeant Kelly Martinez studied the images. She was an engineer who understood how machines worked. "Colonel, these don't look like shields at all. They look like prison walls," Colonel Green finished. "That's exactly what I was thinking." Kelly worked with computers and alien technology every day. The Kethany had let some humans help with their construction projects. They said it would help humans learn. But Kelly had been learning things the aliens probably didn't want her to know. "I've been working on their systems," she told Colonel Green. "I found something strange in their computer files. They keep talking about Earth as the containment world. What do you think that means?" Colonel Green felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "It means we need to find out what they're really doing here." At the same time, in a small apartment in Chicago, a teenage girl named Lucy Adams was doing something that would change everything. Lucy was good with computers. Very good. She could break into systems that were supposed to be secure. Her father, Dr. Peter Clark, had told her about the strange readings from the aliens. Lucy decided to do some investigating of her own. "If the adults can't get answers," she said to herself, "maybe I can find them." Lucy spent 3 days working on the problem. The Kethany computer systems were very advanced, but Lucy was very smart, and she was patient. Finally, she found a way in. What she saw in the alien computers made her hands shake. There were files about Earth, files about humans, and files about something called the sleeping threat. Lucy read through the documents as fast as she could. Most of it was in alien language, but some parts had been translated into human languages. One file was titled Species Assessment, Homo sapiens. Lucy opened it and began to read. The report talked about humans in a way that scared her. It said humans had dangerous potential and reality-shaping capabilities. It mentioned something called quantum consciousness that was beginning to awaken in the human population. But the part that scared Lucy most was a section called Containment Recommendations. It talked about keeping humans isolated from other alien races. It talked about suppressing development of human abilities. Lucy printed everything she could. Then she called her father. "Dad," she said, her voice shaking, "you need to come home. Right now, I found something about the aliens. Something really bad." Dr. Clark rushed home from his laboratory. When he saw what Lucy had found, his face went white. "We have to tell General Murphy," he said. "We have to tell everyone." But as Dr. Clark reached for his phone, he stopped. "Lucy, if the aliens find out you hacked their systems?" "I know, Dad, but people need to know the truth." Across the country, other humans were starting to notice strange things. Jake Harrison was still watching the alien ships from his space station. He had been keeping detailed records of their activities. "They're not building shields," he told Amy Rodriguez over the radio. "The energy patterns are all wrong. These structures are designed to keep things in, not keep things out." Amy had been working with the aliens every day, translating their messages. She had started to notice that they used different words when they thought humans weren't listening. "Jake, I recorded something yesterday," she said. "The aliens were talking to each other. They didn't know I was listening. They weren't speaking about protecting Earth. They were talking about controlling it." Meanwhile, journalist Maria Santos had been investigating the Kethany on her own. She had contacts all over the world. People who worked with the aliens. People who had questions. Maria had collected dozens of stories from people who worked on the alien construction projects. All of them said the same thing. The aliens were building something that looked more like a prison than a shield. That night, Maria published her story. The headline read, "Are our alien protectors really our captors?" The story spread around the world in hours. People started demanding answers from their governments. They wanted to know what the aliens were really doing, but the governments didn't have answers. Only more questions. In space, Keeper Voss stood in his ship, watching the human news reports. Other Kethanese stood around him. They were talking in their musical language, but their voices sounded worried. "The humans are beginning to suspect," one of them said. "It was always going to happen," Keeper Voss replied. "They are too curious, too questioning. That is what makes them so dangerous." "Should we move to the next phase?" another Kethany asked. Keeper Voss looked down at Earth. The blue planet seemed so peaceful from space. But he knew what was sleeping down there, what was beginning to wake. Not yet," he said, "but soon. We must be ready to contain them before they fully awaken." On Earth, humans were starting to connect the pieces. The aliens had come claiming to protect Earth. But from what? And why wouldn't they say? Dr. Susan Wright looked at all her data. Colonel Tony Green studied his pictures of the alien structures. Lucy Adams read through more stolen files. Jake Harrison watched the alien ships dot. They were all starting to understand the same horrible truth. The Kethany hadn't come to protect Earth from some outside threat. They had come to protect the galaxy from Earth. From humanity itself. The truth was out there, somewhere beyond the alien shields. Jake Harrison knew it. He also knew that the only way to find it was to go looking for it himself. "This is crazy," Amy Rodriguez said as she watched Jake prepare his ship. "If the Kethany catch you trying to leave Earth, they'll stop you." Jake checked his equipment one more time. His ship was small but fast. It was called the New Frontier. He had built it himself over many years, hoping someday to explore the galaxy. He never thought he would need it to escape from his own planet. "They've told us we can't leave Earth for our own safety," Jake said. "But what if our safety isn't what they're worried about?" Steve Williams, his pilot friend, climbed into the ship beside him. "I've been thinking the same thing. If there's really a big threat coming, why haven't we seen any signs of it? No emergency. Signals from other worlds. No refugees running away from this darkness." Nancy Kim, their communications expert, joined them. "I've been listening to space communications for weeks. The only signals I'm picking up are from the Kethany ships. If there's a war going on out there, it's the quietest war in history." Jake started the ship's engines. "And let's go find out what's really happening." They launched from the hidden base in the middle of the night. The ship was small enough to avoid the big detection systems. Jake hoped they could slip through the alien shields without being noticed. As they approached the shield barrier, strange things began to happen. The ship's instruments went crazy. Lights flashed on and off. The engine made noises it had never made before. "Jake," Steve said, his voice tight with worry, "something's wrong with the ship." But Jake wasn't looking at the instruments. He was looking at his hands. They were glowing with a soft blue light. "What the hell?" Nancy whispered. Jake felt different. Like electricity was running through his body. But it didn't hurt. It felt powerful. "I think I can control it," Jake said. The blue light grew brighter around his hands. As it did, the ship's instruments stopped going crazy. The engine noise went back to normal. "Jake, what are you doing?" Steve asked. "I don't know," Jake said. "But I think I'm fixing the ship with my mind." They passed through the shield barrier. On the other side, space looked different. Stars were clearer. Colors were brighter. And in the distance, they could see something the Kethany had never told them about. Other ships. Lots of them. "Those aren't Kethany vessels," Nancy said, studying her scanners. "The energy signatures are completely different." Jake steered toward the unknown ships. As they got closer, they could see that these ships were damaged. Some were barely holding together. They looked like they had been running from something for a long time. "Jake," Steve said quietly, "I think these are refugees." A signal came through their radio. The voice was tired and scared. "Unknown vessel, please identify yourself." "Are you with the Kethany Protectorate?" Nancy answered. "This is the Earth ship New Frontier. We are human. We're not with the Kethany." There was a long pause. Then the voice spoke again, and now it sounded hopeful. "Humans? From Earth? Please, we need to speak with you. It's very important." An hour later, Jake and his team were aboard the refugee ship. The beings they met, they were like nothing they had ever seen. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of what seemed like living crystal. Some were just clouds of glowing gas. But they all had one thing in common. They were all afraid of the Kethany. The leader of the refugees called herself Ambassador Zara. She was tall and thin, with skin that changed colors when she spoke. "We have been waiting for someone from Earth to find us," she said. "We have been trying to warn your people for months." "Warn us about what?" Jake asked. "About the Kethany. They are not protectors. They are conquerors. They have destroyed dozens of worlds." Steve leaned forward. "But they told us they were protecting us from some kind of darkness." Ambassador Zara's skin turned a deep red color. "The only darkness in this part of the galaxy is the Kethany themselves. They attack peaceful worlds. They pretend to be helpers. Then they enslave entire populations." Nancy was recording everything. "Why haven't you fought back?" "We tried," another refugee said. "This one looked like a walking tree." "But the Kethany have weapons we cannot match. They have shields we cannot break. They are too strong. Then why are they so interested in Earth?" Jake asked. Ambassador Zara's skin turned bright yellow. "Because your people are different. Your species has abilities that could challenge the Kethany. They are afraid of you. What kind of abilities? Steve asked. You can change reality with your thoughts. You can control matter and energy. You can do things that should be impossible. Jake looked at his hands. He remembered the blue light, the way he had fixed his ship just by thinking about it. We don't know how to do those things, he said. But you are learning, Ambassador Zara said. The Kethani know this. That is why they came to your world. Not to protect you from a threat, but to stop you from becoming a threat to them. Back on Earth, other humans were making similar discoveries. Dr. Susan Wright was working late in her laboratory when something strange happened. She was trying to analyze a sample of Kethani technology. The analysis wasn't working. The machine kept giving her error messages. Dr. Wright was frustrated. She had been working on this problem for hours. Come on, she said to the machine. Just work. Suddenly, the machine started working perfectly. The analysis completed in seconds. Dr. Wright stared at the results. Then she looked at her hands. Had she somehow fixed the machine just by wanting it to work? She tried an experiment. She took a broken piece of equipment from her desk. She held it in her hands and concentrated. Work, she whispered. The equipment started working. Dr. Wright sat down hard in her chair. This is impossible, she said. But as she thought about it, she realized it wasn't impossible. It was just something humans had never known they could do. Across town, Mike Roberts was having his own strange experience. Mike had been a soldier before he started working with the alien technology. He was strong and tough, but he had never thought of himself as special. He was working on one of the Kethani construction sites when an accident happened. A huge piece of metal fell toward a group of workers. There was no time to get out of the way. Mike ran toward the falling metal without thinking. All he wanted was to stop it from hurting people. The metal stopped in mid-air. Mike stood there, his hand stretched out, holding up a piece of metal that weighed several tons. With his mind, the other workers stared at him. Mike stared back. He had no idea how he was doing it, but he was doing it. How? Someone asked. I don't know, Mike said. I just ... wanted it to stop falling. Similar things were happening all over Earth. Linda Hayes, a school teacher, found she could make plants grow faster just by touching them. Danny Price, who worked in construction, discovered he could reshape metal with his bare hands. Patricia Bell, a nurse, realized she could help people heal just by concentrating on them. All of these people had one thing in common. They had been working near Kethani technology. Something about being close to the alien equipment was waking up abilities that had been sleeping in human minds. Dr. Peter Clark, Lucy's father, started collecting reports of these incidents. What he found amazed him. It's happening everywhere, he told General Lisa Murphy. Humans are developing abilities we never knew we had, and it's accelerating. General Murphy looked at the reports. How many people? Hundreds so far, maybe thousands. And the number is growing every day. What kind of abilities? Telekinesis. The ability to move things with their minds. Enhanced healing. The power to manipulate matter at the molecular level. Some people seem to be able to interface directly with computers and machines. General Murphy was quiet for a long moment. Dr. Clark, do you think this is what the Kethani are really afraid of? I think the Kethani know something about humans that we're just discovering ourselves. I think they came here to stop us from learning what we can really do. Then we need to learn fast, General Murphy said, before they decide to stop pretending to be our friends. That night, General Murphy sent coded messages to military leaders around the world. The message was simple. The aliens are not what they seem. Prepare for the worst. But even as she sent the messages, General Murphy wondered if it was already too late. The Kethani had been building their shields for weeks. Earth was surrounded. If they decided to attack, Could humanity defend itself? The answer might depend on how quickly humans could learn to use the strange new abilities they were discovering, and how willing they were to fight for their freedom. In space, Jake Harrison was learning the full truth from the refugees. The Kethany had conquered world after world using the same pattern. They arrived claiming to be protectors. They built defensive structures. Then they revealed their true purpose. They will wait until your people trust them completely, Ambassador Zara explained. Then they will activate their containment systems. Your planet will become a prison. Your people will become slaves. How long do we have? Jake asked. Not long. The Kethany do not like to wait, and they are especially afraid of your species. They will move soon. Jake looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home, his people. They were in terrible danger, and most of them didn't even know it. Jake Harrison's ship raced back toward Earth, carrying the most important message in human history. Behind him, the refugee fleet followed at a safe distance. Ambassador Zara had agreed to help, but only if the humans proved they could stand up to the Kethany. Earth Control, this is Jake Harrison, he said into his radio. I'm coming back with urgent information. The Kethany are not what they claim to be. But when Jake tried to contact Earth, something was wrong. His radio signals were being blocked. They're jamming our communications, Nancy Kim said, working frantically at her equipment. The Kethany don't want us to talk to Earth. Steve Williams pointed out the window. Look at that. The Kethany shield structures around Earth were changing. What had looked like protective barriers were now clearly something else. Energy weapons were emerging from the crystalline structures. They were all pointed at Earth. They know we escaped, Jake said. They know we found out the truth. On Earth, the change was sudden and terrifying. One moment, Keeper Voss was giving his usual speech about protection and safety. The next moment, his voice became cold and mechanical. People of Earth, the alien said, his musical voice now harsh and threatening. You have been asking too many questions. This must stop. For your own safety, we are implementing emergency containment protocols. General Lisa Murphy was in the Pentagon when the announcement came. She immediately tried to contact military bases around the world, but the communications were dead. The Kethany were jamming everything. They're not even pretending anymore, she told her staff. This is an invasion. Around the world, the Kethany ships began landing in major cities. Not the small diplomatic vessels they had sent before, but huge military ships filled with soldiers. Doctor Susan Wright watched from her laboratory window as a Kethany ship landed in Washington. Alien soldiers poured out. They looked different from Keeper Voss. These aliens wore armor and carried weapons that glowed with dangerous energy. They're rounding people up, she told Dr. Peter Clark over the phone. Anyone who worked with their technology. Anyone who asked too many questions. They're coming for Lucy too, Dr. Clark said. His voice was full of fear. She's the one who hacked their computers. They know what she found, but Lucy Adams was not easy to catch. The teenage hacker had seen this coming. She had been preparing for days. Dad, I'm not going to hide, she told her father. I'm going to fight back. Lucy, you're just a kid. What can you do against alien soldiers? Lucy looked at her computer screen. She had been practicing something new, something she had discovered while working with the Kethany systems. I can do this, she said. Lucy placed her hands on her keyboard and concentrated. She felt the strange energy flow through her, the same energy that other humans had been discovering. But Lucy's ability was different. She could connect her mind directly to computer systems. The Kethany soldiers were using their technology to track down humans. But Lucy could use her new ability to turn their own technology against them. Come on, she whispered to herself. Show me what you've got. Lucy's consciousness flowed into the Kethany computer networks. It was like swimming through an ocean of information. She could see everything: ship locations, soldier movements, and something else. The Kethany's real plan. They weren't just conquering Earth. They were preparing to kill most of the human population. Only a few would be kept alive as slaves. The rest would be eliminated because they were too dangerous to contain. Lucy's hands shook as she read the alien files, but she didn't stop. She copied everything she could find. Then she did something that would change the course of the war. She turned off the Kethany jamming systems. Suddenly, radios and phones around the world started working again. Jake Harrison's voice came through loud and clear. Earth Control, this is Jake Harrison. The Kethany are not protectors. They are invaders. I repeat, the Kethany are invaders. We have allies. We have help. But we need to fight. General Murphy grabbed her radio. Jake, where are you? Just outside the shield barrier with a fleet of refugees. The Kethany have been conquering worlds for centuries. Earth is just their latest target. What do? We fight back. And we use the abilities they're afraid of. Around the world, humans were discovering that the stress of the invasion was making their new abilities stronger. Mike Roberts, the former soldier, found himself lifting entire vehicles with his mind to create barriers against the alien troops. Danny Price, the construction worker, was reshaping metal and concrete to build fortifications. His hands glowed with energy as he worked, turning ordinary materials into weapons and shields. Patricia Bell, the nurse, was doing something even more amazing. She was healing wounded people instantly, just by touching them. Bullet wounds closed. Broken bones mended. She was saving lives faster than the aliens could take them. Dr. Susan Wright made a discovery that changed everything. She realized that human abilities got stronger when people worked together. It's like we're all connected, she told a group of other humans who had developed powers. When we focus together, we can do things that should be impossible. To prove her point, she asked 5 people to help her with an experiment. They all concentrated on the same goal: stopping a Kethany aircraft that was attacking a hospital. The aircraft fell out of the sky. How did we do that? Asked one of the volunteers. We combined our abilities, Dr. Wright explained. We linked our minds together. We're stronger when we work as a team. This discovery spread quickly through the human resistance. Groups of people began practicing together. They learned to combine their powers in ways that amazed even themselves. But the Kethany were not giving up easily. Keeper Voss stood in his command ship, watching the human resistance grow stronger. This is exactly what we feared, he told his officers. The humans are awakening faster than we predicted. Their abilities are becoming more powerful. Should we use the final protocol? One officer asked. Keeper Voss looked down at Earth. The final protocol would destroy the planet completely. It would kill every human, but it would also destroy a world that could have been useful to the Kethany Empire. Not yet, he said. Send in the heavy assault units. We will crush this resistance before it grows stronger. The heavy assault units were the Kethany's most powerful weapons. Giant robots that could level city blocks. Energy cannons that could melt steel. Force fields that could stop any normal weapon. But the humans were no longer normal. In New York, a group of 50 humans stood in the middle of Times Square as a giant Kethany robot approached. The robot was 3 stories tall and armed with weapons that could destroy buildings. The humans held hands, concentrated together. The robot stopped moving. Then it began to fall apart. Not from weapons or explosions, but because the humans were willing it to fall apart. They were changing the robot's structure at the atomic level. In Los Angeles, Linda Hayes, the teacher, was leading a group of children and parents against a squad of Kethany soldiers. The aliens had weapons, but Linda had something better. She could make things grow. The plants in the park around them suddenly became enormous. Trees grew to the size of skyscrapers in seconds. Grass became thick as ropes and strong as steel cables. The Kethany soldiers found themselves trapped in a jungle that hadn't existed moments before in Tokyo. A computer programmer named Greg Johnson discovered he could control any electronic device just by thinking about it. He turned the city's entire electrical grid into a weapon against the invaders. Street lights became laser cannons. Traffic control systems became missile guidance systems. The Kethany found their own equipment turning against them. But the most amazing discovery happened in a small town in Kansas. A bus driver named Frank Miller was trying to protect a group of elderly people from a Kethany attack. Frank had never thought of himself as special. He was just an ordinary man who drove a bus and tried to help people. But when the aliens threatened the people he cared about, something incredible happened. Frank's mind reached out and touched the minds of everyone around him. Not just the humans, but somehow he connected with other humans fighting around the world. For just a moment, every human on Earth who had developed abilities felt connected to every other human. The effect was like lightning all around the planet. Humans felt their powers grow 100 times stronger. Every Kethany ship, every robot, every weapon stopped working at exactly the same moment. Keeper Voss felt his command ship losing power. What is happening? He demanded his officers check their instruments, but nothing was working properly. Sir, it appears the humans have somehow linked their consciousness together. They're affecting all our technology simultaneously. That's impossible, Keeper Voss said. No species has ever been able to do that. But it was happening. Humans were discovering that their individual abilities were just the beginning. When they worked together, when they truly connected with each other, they could do things that defied every law of physics the Kethany knew. In space, Jake Harrison felt a connection too. His ship suddenly became an extension of his mind. He could control it perfectly, as if it were part of his own body. Jake, Amy Rodriguez said, her voice full of wonder, I can understand every language being spoken on the refugee ships. I can talk to all of them at once. Steve Williams found he could pilot the ship in ways that should have been impossible. The Kethany ships were retreating, but their shield generators still surrounded Earth. General Lisa Murphy knew that as long as those structures existed, humanity was still in a cage. We need to destroy those shields, she told her team through the mental link that now connected all of humanity. But Lucy Adams had a better idea. The teenage hacker was still connected to computer systems across the galaxy. She could see possibilities that others missed. General, Lucy said, her voice reaching Murphy's mind directly, what if we don't? Destroy the shields? What if we take control of them instead? Doctor, Susan Wright understood immediately. The shields are incredibly powerful. If we could turn them into weapons, we could free every enslaved world in the Kethany Empire. Jake Harrison added from his ship in space. It was a plan that would have been impossible just days ago. But humanity had changed. They were no longer limited by what seemed possible. Greg Johnson, the computer programmer in Tokyo, was the first to attempt connecting with the shield generators. He reached out with his mind, feeling for the alien technology that surrounded Earth. I can sense them, he said. The generators are incredibly complex, but they're just machines. And machines can be controlled. Around the world, other humans with technical abilities joined the effort. Engineers like Kelly Martinez, scientists like Dr. Peter Clark, even ordinary people who had discovered they could interface with technology. Together, they began to understand how the Kethany shields worked. It's not just about blocking things, Kelly realized. These generators can focus energy anywhere in the galaxy. They're like massive transmitters. Transmitters for what? General Murphy asked. Lucy, who was deeper in the alien computer systems than anyone else, found the answer. For consciousness itself. The Kethany use these devices to project their mental control across space. That's how they maintain their empire. Dr. Susan Wright felt a chill of understanding. They've been using these generators to suppress the natural abilities of enslaved species. The same abilities we've been developing. But if we control the generators, Frank Miller said from Kansas, we can do the opposite. We can help those enslaved peoples awaken their own powers. It was an enormous undertaking. The shield generators were the most advanced technology humanity had ever encountered. But they were no longer working alone. Mike Roberts, the former soldier, found that his ability to move objects with his mind extended to the massive alien structures. Danny Price discovered he could reshape their metal components. Patricia Bell realized she could heal damaged systems by touching them. Most importantly, they were all working together. The connection between human minds meant that every discovery, every breakthrough, was instantly shared with everyone else. "I've got partial control of Generator 7, announced a voice that belonged to a mechanic in Detroit named Chris Anderson. "Generator 3 is responding to mental commands," reported Diane Foster, a librarian in Seattle who had discovered she could read electronic data like books. One by one, the shield generators came under human control. But the humans didn't shut them down. Instead, they began to modify them. "We're turning them into beacons," Lucy explained to her father. "Instead of suppressing consciousness, they'll amplify it. They'll help awakening minds connect across the galaxy." In space, Ambassador Zara watched in amazement as the human plan unfolded. "Your species continues to surprise us," she told Jake Harrison. "We spent centuries trying to fight the Kethany with conventional weapons. You're fighting them with consciousness itself." Jake felt the connection to his fellow humans growing stronger. Through their shared link, he could sense the progress being made on Earth. But he could also sense something else. "There are ships coming," he warned. Kethany reinforcements, a lot of them. The retreating Kethany forces had called for help. A massive fleet was approaching Earth, with weapons powerful enough to destroy the planet completely. "How long do we have?" General Murphy asked. 2 hours, Jake replied. It should have been terrifying news. The approaching fleet was larger than anything humanity had ever imagined. But the humans felt no fear. They had discovered something the Kethany had never expected. Unity was stronger than any weapon. "All generators are under our control," Greg Johnson reported. "We're ready to begin transmission." "Transmission of what?" someone asked. Lucy smiled as she made the final connections in the alien computer systems. "Transmission of freedom." The shield generators, which had been built to imprison Earth, suddenly became something entirely different. Instead of containing human consciousness, they began broadcasting it. The signal went out at the speed of thought, reaching enslaved worlds throughout the Kethany Empire. On planets that had been controlled for centuries, beings who had forgotten they could be free suddenly remembered. On a mining world called Theros, workers who had been slaves for generations suddenly looked up at their Kethany overseers and said, "No more." On the ocean world of Aquanus, an entire species that had been forced to harvest resources for the Empire suddenly discovered they could control water itself. They swept their oppressors away in tsunamis of liberation. On world after world, the same thing happened. The human consciousness signal didn't just wake up dormant abilities. It reminded enslaved peoples of something more important. They deserved to be free. The Kethany fleet approaching Earth suddenly found itself dealing with rebellions on dozens of worlds. Ships had to be diverted to handle uprisings. What had been a massive invasion force became a scattered emergency response team. But some ships still made it to Earth. Keeper Voss led the remaining fleet personally. He was desperate now. The humans had done more than defeat his invasion. They had started the collapse of the entire Kethany Empire. If we cannot control them, he told his officers, we must destroy them. The Kethany opened fire on Earth with weapons that could crack continents. Energy beams that could melt mountains streaked toward the planet, but the beams never reached their targets. 50,000 humans, all connected through their shared consciousness, reached out together and simply made the weapons stop working. The energy beams faded away. The missiles turned to dust. The Kethany ships found their engines shutting down. Impossible, Pieper Voss whispered. Frank Miller, the bus driver who had first connected human consciousness, spoke directly to the alien commander's mind. His words carried the voice of all humanity. Nothing is impossible when people work together for freedom. The remaining Kethany ships were gently pushed away from Earth by an invisible force generated by human will. They were not destroyed. They were not harmed. They were simply sent home with a message. The age of empires is over, the message said. The age of cooperation has begun. Across the galaxy, the transformation continued. World after world threw off Kethany control. But they didn't do it with violence or revenge. They did it with the same united consciousness that humanity had discovered. Species that had been enemies for millennia found themselves working together. Worlds that had been isolated for centuries suddenly felt connected to a galactic community of free peoples. The Kethany Empire, which had seemed unbreakable just days before, simply dissolved. Not through conquest, but through awakening. 6 months later, Jake Harrison stood on the observation deck of a space station that had once been a Kethany prison. Now it was a meeting place for representatives from hundreds of worlds. The funny thing is, he said to Amy Rodriguez, who had become Earth's ambassador to the galactic community, the Kethany were right about one thing. Humans are dangerous. How so? Amy asked. We're dangerous to anyone who thinks they have the right to control others. In the station's main hall, beings from across the galaxy were working together on projects that would have been impossible under the old empire. Scientists sharing knowledge freely. Artists creating beauty that inspired entire worlds. Engineers building machines that helped rather than harmed. At the center of it all were the transformed shield generators. No longer weapons of control. They had become bridges of understanding, helping different species communicate and cooperate across the vast distances of space. Dr. Susan Wright, now working with alien scientists, had made discoveries that expanded understanding of consciousness itself. We're all connected, she explained in her latest report. Every thinking being in the universe shares the same fundamental awareness. The Kethany tried to break those connections. We're helping to restore them. Lucy Adams had become something like the galaxy's chief information officer. Her ability to interface with any computer system made her invaluable in connecting the vast networks of free worlds. But she never worked alone. Every day she collaborated with other minds, both human and alien. The best part, she told her father, is that we're still learning. Every day we discover new ways to work together. General Lisa Murphy had become coordinator of the Galactic Defense Alliance. But this was not a military organization in the old sense. It was a network of worlds committed to protecting each other's freedom. We don't conquer, she explained to new members. We liberate. We don't control. We cooperate. On Earth, life had changed dramatically. The awakening of human consciousness had transformed everything. Cities were powered by clean energy generated through collective mental focus. Diseases were healed through the